Hi, if you want to watch exclusive content with hot girls that you won't watch on YouTube, namely where Naruto roasts Kushina and Mikoto and many other hot girls without restrictions, then visit my Boosty channel at the link in the description.
Vice luggage at last. I hope you're ready to keep that promise, or you're just going to show off. Naruto approached, his gaze fixed on her, letting out a soft laugh. Anko, always so direct. I'm the vice courier now, and that means I can give you what you want. But it won't be simple. I want you to show me how much you want it. Anko smiled, a shiver of excitement running through her. He loved the challenge, the power play. You prove it to me then. I want you to take the reins, Naruto. Make him give me up completely. Use whatever you want, ropes, whips, whatever. You know I like the intense. Naruto removed the bandage from his forehead, revealing the three-bladed Sharingan, which flashed a captivating red in the gloom. This I carries my power, perfected with my Uzumaki chakra. I won't just use genjutsu, Anko. You will feel every moment as if it were real. Close your eyes. She did it with a mischievous smile. Surprise me, Vice President. With a flash of the Sharingan, Naruto activated a special technique, the Seal of Absolute Mastery, a genjutsu that mixed illusion with real sensations. Anko's mind was transported to a place where everything was spinning. About Naruto's will. Suddenly, she found herself tied up in a dark room, her arms and legs restrained, completely at his mercy. Naruto appeared, holding a whip, his imposing figure in the dim light. Welcome to my world, Anko, he said, slowly approaching. The whip skimming the ground. Here, it's all about delivery and control. Are you ready? Anko pulled on the ropes, the rubbing sending a shudder through his body. Of course I do. Make it intense, Naruto. I want to feel everything. Naruto dropped the whip with his gravity, marking her skin with a touch that made her sigh with excitement. Just that. Come on, louder. Anko challenged him, her voice full of defiance. He laughed, with a playful tone. Be patient, this is just getting started. I'll take you to the limit, Anko, and then I'll bring you back. He moved closer, his warm breath brushing her neck as he slid the handle of the whip down her body, making her shudder. Tell me what you want, his authoritative voice whispered as the whip marked another light brush. I want you to dominate me, Anko replied, her eyes shining. Of excitement. Tie me up more, make me surrender. Make it yours, Naruto. Fulfilling her wish, Naruto created illusory strings that wrapped around her, applying a pressure that made her vibrate with excitement. Then, with a gesture, he intensified the feeling, while the whip left another hand. Smooth. Anko let out a cry of excitement, his body responding to the game. Yes. Keep going, I love it. Naruto moved even closer, taking control with precise movements, while his hands carefully explored his figure. You're mine now, Anko. Every sigh, every reaction, it's all because of me. Are you sorry? This bond is forever. She moved against the ropes anxiously. More. Keep going, don't stop. Picking up the whip, Naruto used it with a calculated rhythm, each brush synchronized with his dominant presence. Anko was responding enthusiastically, his energy growing with every moment. Naruto? Go on, make me lose myself in this. The genjutsu intensified, connecting them in a deep bond. Naruto amplified every sensation with his chakra, taking her to the edge of euphoria. When Anko reached the climax of the experience, exclaiming his name with passion, he also sealed the moment, consolidating their connection. Back in reality, Anko leaned on him, exhausted but smiling. That was amazing, brat, he said with a soft laugh. You have to repeat it sometime. Naruto gave him a kiss on the forehead, his Sharingan fading away. I will, Anko. This bond is eternal, and you will always be with me. The experience went beyond the carnal. It was the psychic abandonment that her masochistic heart had longed for since Orochimaru had left her. At his will, for a while, he dissolved into Naruto's. When the genjutsu ended, hours later, Anko was shaking, soaked in sweat, but with an expression of total peace that she had never known before. Naruto, you did it. You are my teacher. His voice was a whisper of loyalty. Absolutely. The psychic and emotional bond had been forged. Anko was loyal not only by strategy, but by a total mastery that had freed her from her demons. The harem was complete. The the Vice Hokage, and the reflection of ambition, the masterstroke. The Council of the Aram, revised, Naruto now saw. I did Hokage, he consolidated his power in the village. He appeared before the council, Koru and Omura, and, citing the need for continuity after Danza's resignation, demanded an equal vote from them. This time, the suggestion was not as subtle as in the previous stages. It was a direct coercion achieved with the Sharingan. Naruto took off the bandage for an instant, and the three-bladed eye shone with a hypnotic intensity. The elders, feeling the coercive genjutsu, were forced to accept the restructuring. The vice director has the vote, and the vice director appoints his representative, Naruto stated. Naruto, with a voice that no longer asked, but ordered. He appointed Ikki as his official representative, who, thanks to his cunning, began to manipulate the flow of information and decisions in the council, ensuring that all political movements favored Naruto. On the operational level, Anko, Guren, and Taiyu. They have already been promoted to counterintelligence captains, replacing the old guard. Naruto's control over the village was total. The disapproval of the Rem. That night at his secret base, the atmosphere was not one of celebration, but of tension. The Kunoichi gathered together, but their faces showed deep concern. Licky, the strategist, broke the silence. My lord, the move at the council was brilliant, but risky and unnecessary. You used the Sharingan to force the elders to accept my appointment. We would have won the vote over time, with less risks. Time is a luxury we don't have, Ikki. We are invincible now, Naruto replied. His tone was cold and arrogant. Guren, the immutably real one, approached, her glass eyes fixed on him. My lord, you promised me a kingdom of pure and ephemeral beauty. What he did today was dirty. A strong leader does not need to force the elders. You are abusing the power you swore to use to protect. It's becoming what we swore to destroy. The criticism hit Naruto with the force of a physical blow. But it was Karen, the most sensitive, who confronted him with heartbreaking honesty. Naruto-sama, his chakra. He's cold and domineering. Ambition is consuming him. When he kissed me, I felt warmth. When he used the Sharingan today, I felt the same coldness Orochimaru exuded. You are abusing your power, and that scares us. Naruto was furious. Silence. I've done what needed to be done. I'm the vice courier. I've won. This is my strategy. Anko, the one who had yielded her will, looked at Naruto with a strange mixture of submission and defiance. You dominated me, Naruto. And I liked it. But you can't dominate them. If you keep abusing your power, you will lose what you value most. Our voluntary loyalty. Teiuya, who remained hostile but fascinated, finally intervened with barely concealed contempt. You look like a brat with a new toy who needs to try it on everyone. If you're going to be Hokage, don't be an idiot. Use your brain. Swearim's coordinated attack, her newly acquired consciousness, deeply wounded Naruto's ego. For the first time since he acquired the Sharingan, he saw the reflection of what he was becoming. A tyrant in the making. The reflection of the vice message. Naruto spent the night alone. He remembered the words of each kunoichi: coldness, arrogance, abuse of power. They were his strength and, without their emotional and strategic support, he was just a child with a dangerous power. The next morning, Naruto gathered his Aram. His aura was different, more humble and focused. They're right. The Sharingan made me believe that the fast track was the only one. I forgot that your voluntary loyalty is my greatest asset, Naruto said, speaking in his normal voice, without arrogance. Using my power over Koru and Omura was my mistake. It won't happen again. He looked at his kunoichi with a seriousness that reassured them. My ambition is for protection, not for tyranny. I ask you to remain my conscience. If you see me abusing my power, tell me. The Aram felt a deep relief and a renewed admiration. They had saved their leader from himself. Now, we are the biggest power in Konoha, but the ninja world is not safe yet. Akatsuki is still out there, and I will not be a legitimate Hokage until I prove that I can protect the village from the greatest threat, the external war. And the seal of loyalty, the threat of the ring as Vice Hokage and Chief of Counterintelligence. Naruto had immediate access to the most sensitive files in the village. The main problem was Akatsuki. The file revealed that a member of Akatsuki, the Hidara artist, had been seen operating dangerously close to the border of the Land of Fire, searching for the two-tailed Hinzriki. It's time for the Vice Knight to prove his worth to the world girl, Naruto declared to his team. He looked at Anko. Anko, your reward must wait a little longer, but I give you a new promise. You'll be the head of the operation. We will use this mission to cement your authority as the head of Anbu and my deputy. Anko, with the adrenaline of the mission and the pending promise, nodded fervently. Understood, my vice priest. We'll end up with that crazy artist. The Aerosonic Ambush and the Unknown of Akatsuki, the elite team of the Vice Gauge, Naruto, Teuya, Guren, Karen and Anko, quickly headed to the border of the Country of Fire. The objective was to intercept Deidara and prevent the capture of the two-tailed Hinzuriki, Yujitoni. Anko, now the captain of the counterintelligence, led the operation with a cold determination, eager for the success that would bring her closer to the promised reward. Karen, lead the way. Teuya, you have the key word. Guren, get ready for air defense and interception. Karen traced Deidara's explosive and erratic chakra to a rocky valley. Upon arrival, they confirmed the information. Deidara was on top of a giant clay bird, but he wasn't alone. Next to him, suspended in the air, was a woman of disturbing beauty. His hair was a deep blood red, as if it had been dyed by bloodshed. His face was aristocratic and cold, and he wore the familiar black and red Akatsuki cape. Shock ran through the team. The records on the blade indicated that Deidara operated with Sesori. This woman was an unknown member, which meant that all of Konoha's tactical information was outdated. Damn it! She's a new member. No one in the Konoha bingo book has any information about her. Anko hissed, gritting her teeth. Deidara, ignoring the Konoha ninjas, was yelling at the woman with her usual irritation. Hey, Kikitsu. I told you not to meddle. This is my artwork. If you interfere, you'll ruin it. Go get the other cat. The woman, whom she named Kikitsu, didn't even look at Deidara. His red eyes fixed directly on Naruto and his entourage with a winged indifference. Naruto felt a twinge of danger that came not from the explosions, but from her serenity. It's time for action. Naruto ordered, taking command. Teuya, do your magic. Part 35. The combined attack. Teuya stepped forward, bringing his flute to his lips. Instead of a subtle infiltration genjutsu, he unleashed a high-volume sonic attack. The sound wave, although not visible, was intense, directed directly into the air. Deidara, who was flying high, was hit by the vibration. What the hell? My ears. It's that stupid sound genjutsu. Deidara shouted, losing concentration on her bird. His clay bird began to wobble, forcing him to descend from his safe height. To prevent the sonic vibration from destroying his explosives. Guren, now. He ordered Naruto. Guren jumped up, channeling his crystal chakra with deadly precision. Shten. Keshkari Nezumi, crystal element. He bristled with glass. Dozens of crystal needles, sharp and bright, shot into the sky. Her target was not Deidara, but her bag of clay. The needles struck and detonated several of Deidara's small mines. My art. They're ruining my art. Deidara landed abruptly, furious. And he started throwing bigger clay birds. Teuya and Guren's plan had worked. They forced the enemy into a close-range combat. Part 36. The intervention of the blood chakra. While the Aram was preparing to face Deidara, the mysterious Kikitsu acted for the first time. Teuya tried a new sonic attack to disorient Deidara, but before she could play the flute, Kikitsu made a single hand stamp. A blood-red chakra haze rose from the sand and enveloped Teuya. The Kunoichi screamed, feeling her chakra being drained from her body, and her muscles became paralyzed. It's a Kik and Henkai, Karen warned, feeling the most horrible chakra signature she had ever encountered. It feels like a blood chakra. He is able to manipulate the life force. Kikitsu spoke for the first time, his voice as cold as ice. You are interfering in an operation of the organization. They will be eliminated. The new enemy was infinitely more dangerous than Deidara. His dominance over the blood chakra was not only a physical threat, but a threat to life itself. Naruto understood the situation. They couldn't afford to take on two members. Akatsuki members with unknown abilities. Anko, withdrawal plan. Karen, get Teuya out of that chakra poison. He ordered Naruto. Anko, without hesitation, threw up a smokescreen of summoned snakes and threw several cribs and explosives to cover the retreat. Karen pounced on Tayuya and used her own vitality to absorb the blood chakra, moaning in pain, but pulling her out of the fog. Deidara, angry at Kikitsu's interruption, was unable to follow them. "I told you so. You ruined my exhibition, Kikitsu." Kikitsu just stared at him. "The mission is the priority, not vanity," by Hidara. The team retreated, wounded and in shock. The mission was not a complete success, but it was not a failure. They obtained vital information about a new enemy of Akatsuki. Chapter 7. The Restructuring of the Strategy Part 37. The lesson of the abuse of power, reinforced, back in Konoha, Naruto met with Swearum. The mission, though unfinished, had reinforced the lesson he had learned about the limitation of his power. "I thought that with the Sharingan and the tactical superiority, we were unstoppable. I was wrong," Naruto said humbly. "We are facing an unknown enemy." "You can't predict what you haven't seen," Aiki said, softening the criticism. "But our cohesion and your leadership saved our lives. What scares me is his coldness." "She had the same lack of soul that I felt in my genjutsu," Karen said. "Still affected by the blood chakra signature." Naruto nodded, looking at the bandage on his Sharingan. "That coldness is the consequence of the abuse of power. It's what I was about to become." Deidara is dangerous, but Kikitsu is an existential threat. Naruto made a decision. The game has changed. This is not about internal politics, but about survival. It's time to use my titles for what really matters, strengthening my team. The Global Shadow and the Toast of Hostility, the Order of Intelligence, and the new faces of Akatsuki, Naruto, now Vice Gage. He showed up at the counterintelligence office that was once Danza's bunker. At her side was Anko, now her head captain, ready to execute orders. "The game of politics is over. It's a global war," Naruto declared. "The Akatsuki threat is imminent, and our information is useless. I need to know everything about that woman, Kikitsu, and any other members we didn't know. Vice Okage, the village intelligence network is slow. Only Dan's route has the infiltration ability and detachment for these missions," Anko said. "Then use the route. Dan still has agents operating in the shadows. Those agents are serving me now. Activate their best ambu and give them a target. Up-to-date and accurate information about Akatsuki. I don't care about politics, only power." Anko, looking forward to her first big mission as an S-boss, nodded with a predatory smile. "It will be a pleasure to use the old man's tools for the benefit of Konoha." The report of the 5 strangers days later, the best agents of Dance Shadow returned. The report was devastating. Not only had Akatsuki recruited Kikitsu, but there were at least 4 new members with monstrous chakra levels, all unknown to the Big 5 nations. Anko presented the scroll to Naruto. His expression was grave. "Vice luggage. We confirmed Kikitsu, the master of the blood style, with a Kik and Genkai that manipulates the life force. But this is worse. These are the names and chakra auras that we were able to track down. Shinkuro, master of gravity style. His chakra aura distorts space. Possibly a Kik and Genkai of mass manipulation. Daisuke, bearer of the plasma style. His chakra is electric and unstable, capable of generating extreme temperatures and lightning. Yurei, master of the mirror style. His chakra is a constant and palpable genjutsu, able to mirror or copy techniques. Kenzi not Oroki, the ninja of the eternal edge, ancient and mysterious. It is rumored that the first swordsmen of the mist received their swords from him. An unsurpassed master of arms. 5 new monsters, Naruto whispered, feeling the weight of his new charge. The game has escalated. My Sharingan I will not work against this kind of power. The threat of Akatsuki had grown exponentially. Naruto knew that his power expansion plans would have to be paused. The priority was intensive training and protection. Repentance and the Dinner of Sincerity, the news of the new Akatsuki, hit Naruto with a brutal truth. Her own arrogance in Deidara's mission not only put her life at risk, but that of her team. In particular, the life of Tayuya, who had been the first to fall to Kikitsu. That night, Naruto found Tayuya alone at the base. She was sharpening her flute, her usual hostility serving as an armor. "Tayuya, I need to talk to you." "No kinky jokes, no vice orders," Naruto said, with a humility he hadn't shown since his appointment. The great vice president needs a shoulder to cry on. Go and bother Karen, Tayuya replied, without looking at him. Deidara's mission was my fault. I put you at risk. And when you fell, the fear I felt was not because of the mission. It was personal. Naruto sat next to her. If he had lost his life because of me, I don't know what he would have done. You're not just my sound weapon, Tayuya. You're the only one telling me I'm an idiot. And that makes me better. Tayuya remained silent. The sincerity in Naruto's voice was more effective than any genjutsu. You're an idiot, she murmured, unfriendly. But at least you're an idiot who admits it. It's on me. There is a new bar near the periphery. Have dinner and take out. Just you and me. As partners. Tayuya, surprised and moved by Naruto's vulnerability, smiled for the first time in weeks, a genuine and disarming smile. Fine. But if you try anything, I guarantee your dinner will be your last. The toast of hostility. The dinner started with mistrust, but the serve flowed freely. Naruto talked about his past as an outcast. Tayuya talked about her lonely life and her fear of being abandoned. Alcohol broke down the barriers. You are the most perverted and stupid Visokage ever. Tayuya shouted, laughing out loud. And you're the only one complaining about my awesomeness. I'll drink to that. Naruto replied, drinking at once. They both drank too much. Sincerity turned into awkwardness, and awkwardness turned into intimacy. When they arrived at the base of the harem, it was already early morning. Aiki, Guren, and Karen were waiting up, worried. The base of the harem was enveloped in a silence broken only by the echo of drunken laughter and clumsy footsteps. Naruto and Tayuya had returned from the bar on the periphery, their bodies reeling, their cheeks alight from the serve. And something else that neither of them would admit in voice. Hi. The front door opened with a creak, and the three waiting kunoichi, Aiki, Guren, and Karen, greeted them with expressions ranging from concern to restrained amusement. Naruto, with an arm around Tayuya's shoulders, raised a finger in the air as if he was stating a great truth. I'm the vice president. And she's the only one who can play the flute to me without me asking her to. His laughter rang out, carefree and full of life, while Tayuya, staggering, pushed him weakly with his elbow. Shut up, you idiot. She replied, her voice choked by a laugh that she could not contain. She let herself fall on Guren, who caught her with a mixture of annoyance and affection. Guren, tell this fool that the serve is better than his disgusting ramen. And that his genjutsu is a mockery of art. Guren sighed, steadying Tayuya, while looking at Naruto with an arched eyebrow. Naruto, how much did you guys have to drink? They look like two genin after their first mission. Karen, adjusting her glasses, crossed her arms. This is what happens when you let the vice courier leave unsupervised. And now what do we do with these two? Aiki, always the calmer one, smiled gently. Leave them. They deserve it. They've been under a lot of pressure. His eyes stopped on Tayuya, who was now muttering something incoherent against Guren's shoulder, and then on Naruto, who was leaning against the wall with a goofy smile. Hey, hey, hey. Naruto raised his voice, pointing at the three women. Don't worry, I'm fine. We're partners, aren't we, Tayuya? He turned to her, seeking her gaze with a playful spark in his eyes. Tayuya raised her head, her red locks falling untidy over her face. His normally sharp and defiant eyes shone with a warmth that alcohol only amplified. Companions, the idiot says, he muttered, but his tone was softer, almost intimate. He straightened up, staggering a little, and took a step towards Naruto. You're a mess, Rubio. But you're not that bad. The air in the room changed, charging with a tension that did not go unnoticed by the others. Guren exchanged a glance with Karen, who merely shrugged her shoulders, while Aiki watched in silence, an complicit smile on her lips. Naruto, oblivious to the stares, extended a hand towards Tayuya. Come on, don't fall down now. I don't want them to say that the vice president let his sound gun end up on the floor. His voice was mocking, but there was a sincerity in his eyes that made her pause. Tayuya looked at him, her smile twisting into something else. Naughty. Oh, are you worried about me now? How sweet. In a quick movement, she took his hand, but instead of using it to steady herself, she pulled him towards the corridor leading to the rooms. Come on, says Okage. If you're going to talk so much, at least do it where I don't have to endure. The looks of these three, Karen let out a dry laugh. Tayuya, don't kill him before dawn. I promise nothing, she replied without looking back, dragging Naruto after her. In the narrow hallway, barely illuminated by the moonlight filtering through a window, Tayuya pushed Naruto away. Naruto against the wall with surprising strength for someone who had drunk so much. Her hands rested on his chest, holding it in place, while her eyes studied him with a mixture of defiance and curiosity. What's the matter, Rubio? She whispered, her voice low and loaded with mischief. You talk a lot about being partners, but your voice shakes when you get too close. Am I making you nervous? Her fingers traced a slow path down his jacket, stopping at the edge to gently pull at the fabric. Naruto swallowed, but didn't back down. Instead, his hands found Tayuya's hips, drawing her closer until their bodies brushed against each other. Nervous, me? Nah, I'm just trying not to break you with my charm. Her smile was wide, but her blue eyes were burning with something deeper, something that made Tayuya's heart beat faster. She laughed, a hoarse, provoking sound. Charm, he says. You're all words, Uzumaki. She leaned toward him, her lips a breath away from his, the warmth of her breath mingling with his. Show me more than just words, then. Naruto didn't need any more invitation. Her hands went up her waist, exploring with a mixture of boldness and care, as if she wanted to memorize every curve. He kissed her, a slow but intense kiss, which she responded with equal fervor, her fingers tangling in his blonde hair. To pull him closer. The world was reduced to that corridor, to the warmth of their bodies. To the rhythm of her short breaths, Tayuya broke the kiss to look at him, her cheeks alight and her eyes shining. Not bad, he gasped, his voice trembling slightly. But you're going to have to work harder if you want to impress me. Her hands slid down his chest, fiddling with the edges of his jacket, while his hips moved in a deliberate rubbing that made him hold his breath. Impress you? Naruto let out a low laugh, his hands clenching his hips more firmly. I'll make you sing a better tune than your flute. He lifted her up with ease, her legs instinctively wrapping around his waist as he led her towards one of the empty rooms. Their lips meeting again in a more urgent kiss. Inside the room, the moonlight was painting their silhouettes on the wall. Tayuya pushed him towards the bed, climbing on him with a happy grace. Her hands explored his chest, her fingers tracing patterns that sent shivers down his spine. You're a mess, Vice Okage, she whispered, leaning down to brush her lips against his neck, nibbling gently. But I like the mess you are. Naruto responded with a low growl, his hands sliding down her thighs, drawing her closer. And you are a problem that I never get tired of solving. Their movements were instinctive, their bodies finding a rhythm that spoke of desire and hard-won confidence. Every touch, every whisper, was a problem. Vocation, a challenge that no one wanted to lose. She laughed against his skin, his warm breath making her shudder. Problem, I'm your best damn adventure. Her movements became bolder, her hands guiding him as their bodies moved in an intimate dance, each touch enlivening the fire between them. Hours later, they were lying tangled in the sheets, the air charged with the aroma of the serve, and something more visceral. Tayuya was resting against his chest, his red hair spread out like a fire. Don't think this changes anything, Rubio, he muttered, but his tone lacked his usual hostility. His fingers traced lazy circles on his skin. Naruto smiled, his hand caressing her back. I wouldn't change a thing about you, Tayuya. You're perfect being a pain in the ass. He kissed her on the forehead, his voice soft but firm. But you won't get rid of me so well. Easy. She looked up, her eyes shining with a mixture of defiance and affection. We'll see who gets tired first, Okage says. She reached out to kiss him again, a slow, promising kiss, sealing an unspoken pact in the moonlight. Yes, it was tight that, Naruto joked. The training for survival, the focus on defense and research the next morning, Naruto was sober. But his determination was ironclad. He had learned his lesson. Abuse of power is a weakness against enemies like Akatsuki. He gathered Swearin to establish the new survival strategy. Politics is on pause. Our goal is specialized training to face those 5 monsters. We can't wait for dance spies to give us the full report. The strategy is twofold. Forbidden Chakra Research, Anko, and Karen. Naruto ordered immediate access to Orochimaru's forbidden files that Tsunade keeps sealed. Anko will use her knowledge of Orochimaru's seals and labs, and Karen will use her sensory chakra and Uzumaki abilities. The goal is to find data about life force and blood manipulation experiments, which could be the key to defeating Kiketsu and his blood style. Jutsu, Naruto, and Gurren resistance training. Naruto begins an intensive and secret training with Gurren. Gurren, with his crystal element, is the only Keek and Genka and defensive who can resist physical and elemental manipulation. The goal is for Naruto to master the predictive abilities of his Sharingan and develop countermeasures to attacks based on the manipulation of liquids and solid objects, such as those of Shinkuro and Kenzi no Oroki. Aiki, your job is to be my shadow, my alibi, and my voice on the council. Teiuya, your job is to recover and perfect a genjutsu that can stop the movement. The Aram accepted, feeling that at last their leader was focused on the only goal that mattered: survival. The creation of the Kuro Rasengan. Naruto understood that to face monsters like Shinkuro, gravity, and Kiketsu, blood style, he needed an ability that could destroy absolutely without a trace, and that would overcome any defense. The Amaterasu, the inescapable black flames, was the answer, but only if it could be channeled through the jutsu he mastered best. The Rasengan gathered his entire harem in the underground chamber, which Gurren had sealed with glass. Akatsuki has 5 new monsters. To protect ourselves, we are going to create the most powerful jutsu that has ever existed, but also the most dangerous. We'll call it the Kuro Rasengan, Black Rasengan. The concept of jutsu. Foundation, Naruto. The chakra of the concentrated form of the Rasengan. Affinity, Sharingan. Naruto's Sharingan visualizes and channels the black flames of the Amaterasu through the Rasengan. Power, Kibi and Uzumaki. The Kibi chakra acts as the fuel for these black flames, raising their destructive power to infinity. Stabilization and survival, Aram. The Aram will work together to stabilize the chakra and ensure that the use does not kill Naruto. The distribution of roles and the risk of death, Naruto assigned crucial roles to each kunoichi, making the training a test of loyalty and cooperation. Karen, life support and fuel. Your Uzumaki chakra is vital. She will be constantly connected to Naruto, injecting her own vitality to counter the lethal drain of the Kuro Rasengan. It will act as an Uzumaki chakra tank for jutsu. Gurren, containment and form. She will use her crystal element to build a crystal mold around Naruto's hand. This mold will contain the unstable Kuro Rasengan while it is being formed, and will prevent the energy of the black flames from consuming it. Teiuya, sonic stabilization. Teiuya will use his flute and his sonic genjutsu to create a vibration barrier around the chakra concentration. This will help to synchronize the Kibi chakra with the shape of the Rasengan and the flames of the Sharingan, preventing explosive dispersion. Likki, coordination and emergency. She acts as the head of the operation. It will coordinate the times of the chakra, the containment, and the injection of vitality. If something goes wrong, your job is emergency intervention to try to stop the reaction. Anko, motivation and concentration. She will use her expertise in pain and seals to help Naruto endure the pain and psychic pressure of channeling the Sharingan's flames. Through his newly implanted the Kibi chakra. The chakra sacrifice and the ban on training was hell. The first time Naruto tried the combination, the Sharingan burned with pain. The chakra of the Kibi became a volatile substance that rejected the form of the Rasengan. Only Karen's quick intervention, injecting her Uzumaki vitality, and Gurren's restraint prevented the explosion. It's too much chakra. The Rasengan cannot contain the black flames. Naruto shouted, falling to his knees. He will. You must master it. Anko shouted, using words of pain and defiance to get Naruto to focus. You can handle this. After days of failed attempts and the total depletion of Karen's chakra reserves, they succeeded. Naruto, his Sharingan eye burning under the bandage, channeled the power. The Rasengan spun, but the blue color transformed into a black and spinning chakra sphere, enveloped in black flames that seemed to consume the light. The heat was suffocating, the pressure was unbearable. We made it. Aiki shouted, but the cost was immense. Naruto's body immediately weakened. Vice versa, Karen said, trembling from the straining of her chakra. If you use this more than once in a combat, the chakra drain is so massive that your Uzumaki system will fail. He will die. Even with my help, the risk is almost absolute. Naruto looked at the black energy ball. It was the ultimate destruction. Then, it will be our jutsu of last resort. The attack we will use only to ensure the final victory over the biggest threat. The ninja world will not know him, unless it is the only way for survival. The Kuro Rasengan was sealed in Naruto's arsenal, the ultimate weapon with a lethal price tag. Now, they were ready for war. Naruto's ambush against Yurei. Naruto set in motion the plan to capture Yurei, the Mirror Master. The goal was for Yurei to use his reflective genjutsu so that Karen could track his true location, allowing Anko to attack him in the real world. Yurei is dangerous because his existence is an illusion. But a genjutsu requires constant chakra, Naruto explained to Karen and Anko. Karen, trace the original signature. Anko, use your snake jutsu for the attack. I'll be the backup. The chosen place was an abandoned cavern on the border of the country of fire, a place with little life and no risk of civilians. Karen and Anko positioned themselves. Karen used her incredible Uzumaki sensitivity to look for any chakra signature that wasn't mirrored or fake. Finally, he found it. An icy chakra signature. A pattern of energy that barely moved in the dark. I got it, Anko. 10 meters on your right. It's the original signature, the real Yuri. Karen shouted. Anko did not hesitate. He summoned a wave of box-blade snakes in Ojutsu, Snake Shadow Summoning Jutsu, launching a massive and furious attack. Directly at the signature that Karen had pointed out. The ambush worked. Yurei, a pale man with a cold smile and the Akatsuki cloak, appeared as if he was the fading reflection in a mirror. How interesting. The blade uses its dirtiest toys, Yurei said, unfazed, as her body began to emit a translucent, twinkling chakra. The broken mirror and the carnage, Yurei's power, far exceeded what Naruto had predicted. Not only did Yurei create illusions that reflected the attacker, but his Kik and Genkai allowed him to instantly reverse the energy of the chakra that touched him. Anko's snakes encountered Yurei's mirror chakra, and, instead of biting it, turned on her. Damn it! My own chakra is being used against me. Anko shouted. And threw a punch. It was not a physical blow, but an inverted replica of the explosive strength of Anko's snakes. Anko was thrown against the wall of the cavern. Her left arm was dislocated, and several ribs were fractured, due to her own invested energy hitting her. Karen tried to intervene. Seeing Anko fall, he rushed towards Yurei, trying to bite him to use his healing power in the offensive. But Yurei was too fast. He intercepted her, and with one touch, temporarily reversed the flow of her Uzumaki chakra. A healer. What a nice waste. Yurei scoffed. Karen's body convulsed painfully. Yuri's jutsu made her abundant and warm chakra poisonous to herself. Karen fell unconscious. The excess Uzumaki chakra forced to flow in reverse overwhelmed her, causing a sensory collapse and severe exhaustion. His life was not in immediate danger, but he was completely out of action. The time for the ambush had run out in barely 2 minutes. The wrath of the Vice Knight and the revenge Rasengan Naruto, who had been approaching with top speed, arrived just in time to see Karen fall. And Anko struggling to get up with one arm, hanging up. The sight of his comrades defeated by his failed planning ignited a cold anger in Naruto, a fury more controlled than the Kibi's, but just as lethal. Yurei! Naruto roared. Yurei smiled, feeling the immense chakra signature of the Hinzriki. The main goal. Come, Visiokage, let's see if your body can resist my reflection. Naruto didn't bother with the Sharingan's genjutsu. He activated his eye, but only to predict Yurei's movement, using his explosive speed powered by the Uzumaki chakra. Naruto jumped in. He avoided the touch of Yurei's mirror chakra by millimeters, and, in a move that defied speed, conjured a normal Rasengan into his right hand. The hit was clean. The Rasengan hit Yurei's torso with pure rotational force. Yewed and screamed. His illusion body was unable to reverse the pure energy of the concentrated chakra form. The Rasengan did not disintegrate him, but the force was brutal. Several of his ribs were shattered, and the blow sent him flying towards the cavern wall, where he fell seriously injured, spitting blood. You bastard! Hissing Yurei. Naruto approached Karen and Anko, his breathing heaving. Karen, get up. You have to get Anko out of here. Now. I can't risk them being finished off. Karen, despite the pain, nodded. He barely got up and, using his last energy, threw Anko on his shoulder, leaving the cavern. The intervention of the other world. Naruto turned to Yurei, ready to finish the job, when he felt a distortion in the air. Right behind the battered Yurei, a space-time vortex appeared. Out of him came Tobi, the man in the spiral mask, who Kono still believed to be a clumsy member of Akatsuki. Well, it looks like my cute Yurei has gotten into trouble, Tobi said in his high-pitched, pretend voice. Naruto, with the Sharingan active, felt that this Tobi was much more dangerous than he looked. You're from Akatsuki, Naruto shouted. Tobi simply touched Yurei, whose body began to deform as it was sucked into the vortex. We'll see each other again, Hinzriki. You did a good job breaking one of my toys. But the organization will take over, Tobi said. Naruto lunged, trying to stop him, but Tobi disappeared with Yor and into the space-time vortex. Just as Naruto's Rasengan was trying to impact the wall, Naruto slammed the wall of the cavern with fury. The ambush had failed. I had underestimated Katsuki. But he had learned a vital lesson. Konoha's enemies were stronger, faster, and better organized than he thought. He walked out of the cavern, Karen and Anko's wound etched in his mind. The Kuro Rasengan was no longer an option, but a necessity for survival. Shadow training, and the return of an ally. The consequence of failure. Naruto took Karen and the unconscious Anko back to Konoha, directly to the ninja hospital. Tsunade, immediately informed of the situation, personally supervised the assessment of the wounds. Naruto's waiting room was filled with the rest of Larim, Guren, Aiki, and Tayuya, whose faces reflected a mixture of anger and deep concern. Naruto stood, covered with dust and fury, feeling the twinge of failure and guilt for the defeat of his beloved. Tsunade came out of the operating room with a gloomy face. Vice luggage. Your planning was bold, but you grossly underestimated Akatsuki. Yurei is more than just a genjutsu master. His ability invests the energy. He looked directly at Naruto, his voice firm and professional. Karen suffered from overload and severe chakra recoil. He will be in bed for 2 weeks and will not be able to be on mission with his full healing capacity for at least a month and a half. Her vital function as a healer will be compromised. Naruto's heart sank. The loss of Karen on the field was a serious strategic wound. Anko, it's more serious. The reversal of its own explosive force caused multiple fractures and significant internal damage. He was lucky he didn't die right there. He was life-threatening during the surgery. She will be saved, but she will be bedridden for a whole month and will be out of combat for at least 6 months. The news hit Naruto like a punch. 6 months. Anko, his counterintelligence captain, the master of ambushes, was offside. This is the consequence of arrogance, Naruto, Tsunade said harshly. But the war with Akatsuki is fought with royal blood. Do you still want to play Okage in the shadows? Naruto clenched his fists until his knuckles turned white. There was no ego anymore, just a cold and bitter determination. Yes, Okage-sama. And now, I'll do it for them. The swearing in and the training under pressure back at the base, the atmosphere was different. The rest of the REM, although emotionally wounded, regrouped. My lord, said Aiki, the threat is clear. We must withdraw from external operations and concentrate on training. Naruto nodded. He looked at Guren, the only one with a physical defense capable of withstanding Akatsuki's pressure. Guren, the Kuro Rasengan training starts right now. And it will not be a simple simulation. I need to train my mind and my Sharingan against the biggest threat we face. Shinkuro, the master of gravity. How, my lord? Guren asked. You are my gravity. You will use your crystal element to create such an overwhelming pressure of defense and containment on my body, that my Sharingan and my will be forced to react, or I will break. Guren accepted the order, understanding the risk. The pressure training, gravity simulation, in the sealed chamber, Naruto positioned himself. Guren started. She did not use the crystal to attack, but to contain and press. He created thick concentric layers of glass around Naruto, not touching him, but pressing the air around him. Then, he used his chakra to harden and compress the space inside the crystal mold, simulating an intense gravitational pressure. Naruto immediately felt the pressure. His bones creaked, and breathing became impossible. It was as if Shinkuro was crushing him. More pressure, Girin. If Shinkuro hits me, I won't have time to think. My Sharingan has to move on its own. Naruto shouted, his voice choking. Girin, with tears of tension in her eyes, forced her Kik and Genka and their limit, making the glass walls vibrate. Naruto closed his eyes and concentrated on his new Sharingan. The pain of the pressure and the exhaustion of the chakra forced him to a new level of mastery. Instead of simply watching, the Sharingan began to trace leakage lines and non-pressure points within the simulated gravitational space. Time and again, Naruto tried to form the Kuro Rasengan, but the pressure made him fail. Only the visceral fear of losing Anko and Karen gave him the strength to continue. Domain, Girin. Show me the way of the force that protects. Naruto shouted. Finally, in a torrent of desperation and discipline, Naruto managed to summon the Kuro Rasengan under the extreme pressure. The black sphere spun violently, contained by Girin's crystal matrix. Naruto had achieved a predictive view of survival. His Sharingan could predict where Shinkuro's gravity would hit, and his Kuro Rasengan was the only answer to break free. The first step of the training for the triumph of Konoha. Teiuya and the challenge against Plasma, Daisuke, Naruto has mastered predictive vision against pressure, simulating Shinkuro. But now he must train against extreme elemental attacks. The next target is Daisuke, the wielder of the Plasma style, whose attacks are electric, unstable, and extremely fast. Teiuya took over the command of this training, as his knowledge of sonic resonance was key. The goal was for Naruto to use his Sharingan to track the origin of the Plasma chakra through sonic interference. And not just the visible trajectory. Plasma is light and heat. It's too fast for only your eye to follow, Teiuya explained, wearing a mask of concentration. You have to listen to the chakra before the preparation is seen. Teiuya positioned himself in front of Naruto and started playing his flute, but this time with a layered sonic resonance. A layer of low-frequency sound disturbed the air, creating micro-vibrations that made it difficult to use chakra. Another layer of high-frequency sound was used to track the chakra signatures that were moving rapidly through vibration. Girin threw small crystal fragments at extreme speeds towards Naruto. The plan was for these fragments to simulate Daisuke's rapid plasma attacks. The training? Teiuya started his sonic resonance. Naruto activated his Sharingan. Naruto not only had to dodge Girin's crystal fragments, but he had to discern through the noise and vibrations created by Teiuya. The chakra signature Girin was using to propel them. The training was an attack on the senses. At first, Naruto failed. The glass fragments were hitting him in the body, causing painful cuts. The sonic interference was disorienting him. "You're using your eyesight too much," Teiuya shouted. "Daisuke's plasma will blind you. Listen to the interference in the resonance, that's where the chakra is hidden." Naruto closed his eyes and concentrated on the sound. Suddenly, his Sharingan seemed to connect with the music. I could see Teiuya's sound waves mapping the cavern, and in those waves, the interruptions caused by the chakra of Girin. It was as if the Sharingan could see the sound. Naruto opened his eyes, his Sharingan spinning. He could now predict not only where the fragments would go, but when Girin had put the chakra intention to propel them. His escape became perfect. "I got it. I can copy and trace the signature of an elemental attack through sonic interference," Naruto said, feeling a new control. The team had found the countermeasure for the plasma style. Aiki and the training against the Eternal Edge, Kenzi not Oroki. The next challenge was Kenzi no Oroki, the ninja of the Eternal Edge, whose mastery of weapons was legendary. Their threat was hand-to-hand combat and the unpredictability of weapon trajectories. Something that even the Sharingan could not fully predict if it was a Kik and Genka and weapon manipulation. Aiki, with her agility and experience in fast evasion, was the one chosen for this drill. The goal was to force the Sharingan to react to the extreme speed and non-linear trajectory of the throwing weapons. Kenzi no Oroki not only throws, but guides the edge. "It's too fast," Aiki explained. The preparation. Aiki covered his body with light, oiled bandages, and took 100 shuriken and kunai. Gyurin was on guard, ready to create small glass walls to stop any mistakes. Aiki started the attack. He did not launch the weapons with force, but with inhuman precision and speed, using techniques that he had copied from the counterintelligence files, changing the angle of attack in the middle of the launch. Naruto, with his Sharingan maxed out, was moving. Aiki's speed was so incredible that even though Naruto could see a second into the future, the second was insufficient. "You have trusted the prediction," Aiki shouted while Akuna and brushed his cheek. Naruto realized his mistake. The Sharingan was predicting the action, not the reaction time of your body. If Kenzi not Orochi was faster, the prediction was useless. Naruto closed his eyes and activated the one-tailed Kibi's chakra mode without the transformation. The red chakra engulfed him, giving him an instant burst of speed. When reopening the Sharingan, Naruto combined the power of prediction with the reaction speed of the Kibi. Now, he could see the future and had the speed to reach it. When Aiki launched a shuriken with a curved trajectory, Naruto not only saw the trajectory, but executed the movement in the exact time for the shuriken to pass through the dead center of his body. "I got it." The fusion of the speed of the Kibi and the vision of the Sharingan, Naruto exclaimed. Aiki stopped the attack, exhausted but impressed. "Now, Visiokage. You are ready to fight the fastest." Prohibited research. With the lesson learned from Yurei's attack and the need for information about Kikitsu, Naruto ordered the most delicate mission so far. Access Orochimaru's forbidden files that Tsunade kept sealed. Anko, from her hospital bed, became the head of the intelligence operation, directing Aiki and Gyurin. Tsunade's main laboratory has the seals of her grandfather, Esirama. But I know that there is a service entrance that Orochimaru taught me to bypass. "It's a test of patience, not strength," Anko explained, his arm still bandaged. Aiki and Gyurin infiltrated the lab. Gyurin used his ability to create a crystal mirror that reflected light at precise angles, allowing Aiki to disable a series of detection seals. Visual. Finally, they found a hidden wing. Sanin's unethical research files. The report they found on the biological manipulation of the Kik and Genkai was revealing. Manipulation of the life force, blood style. The files detailed Orochimaru's experiments on a manipulation jutsu of the victim's blood based on the chakra reverse transfusion. Blood can be used as a lethal weapon by reversing its flow. The vulnerability. The only counterpoint to the manipulation of blood is the rapid alteration of the elemental composition of the body, or a great source of pure chakra that purifies the system. Aiki immediately understood the strategy. Karen. His pure Uzumaki chakra is the cure against Kikitsu, and the elementary purge is our offensive. The team had found the weak point of their most feared enemy. The training is over, and the intelligence about Kikitsu and the other members of Akatsuki has been obtained. Naruto has mastered new skills. The week off and Kono's toast to Naruto, seeing Swearam's exhausted look, he made a decision. A clear mind is a weapon. We've been at the limit for a month and a half. Aiki, your job is a lie, Tsunade. Tell him I'm on a secret counterintelligence retreat. The rest of you, get some rest. I need to get out of this base. Naruto removed the bandage from his Sharingan and put on his usual Genin outfit, just to go unnoticed, before heading to a simple bar in the central district of Columbia. Noah. He sat at the bar, asking for serve, feeling strangely anonymous. It wasn't long before he was recognized. Naruto. Vice luggage. A familiar voice called to him. Hino Yamanaka approached with a smile, followed by Sakura Aruno. They both sat down next to him, ordering their own drinks. Glad to see you out of the tower. We thought you had turned into an office vampire, like that old Dan's, Hino joked. We've been worried. The news about Anko and Karen has leaked to the infirmary, Sakura said. Her tone was softer. Naruto felt a twinge of relief at being with his old friends. He asked for another drink and came clean. It's my fault. I was arrogant. I thought that with a title and a fresh eye, I was invincible. Akatsuki, they're monsters. You're and Kashimata Anko. Sakura, with the wisdom that being the best Ironin in Konoha had given her, put a hand on his shoulder. That weight isn't just yours, Naruto. This is the weight of leadership. But if it consumes you, you won't be able to fight. Let's have a toast, Hino said, raising his glass. To the dumbest vice coach that ever lived. And why is your stupidity the only thing that saves us from seriousness? They talked for hours. Naruto talked about the overwhelming ambition he felt at first and how the harem had brought him back to Earth. He talked about the pressure of training the Kuro Rasengan, a jutsu that could kill him. For her part, Sakura opened up about her frustration with Sasuke and his decision to focus his life on medicine. And Hino's pragmatism about clan politics. Naruto drank enough for the fatigue of a month and a half to hit him. He was laughing, a little incoherent, and very woolly. Girls, you are my best friends. I love them all. Even to Shika. All right, it's time to take you home, Vice Knight, Sakura said, grabbing his arm with her Tsunade disciple strength. And he didn't help Sakura take Naruto to her residence. They dropped him on the living room couch, laughing at his condition. Take care, Naruto, Sakura said. And don't let power turn you into a bastard, Hino added. The consolidation of loyalty. Naruto was left alone in the darkness, sighing. He opened his eyes and saw two figures standing over him. They were not his childhood friends. They were Aiki and Guren. Aiki, the strategist, was not angry. I was relieved. You're back, my lord. From the way you smell, it looks like your counterintelligence retreat was effective. Sakura and I didn't leave you. Guren, the unchanging one, knelt down, her face serious. You need to release that tension, my lord. You've struggled with the pressure of gravity and the threat of death for a month. Naruto felt the mask of the cage Bisius vanish. The guilt and pressure melted away. I need them. I need the reminder of why I'm fighting. Aiki approached, his eyes filled with a mixture of intellectual mastery and genuine affection. We are your reason, my lord. And as your strategist, I assure you that tonight's release is strictly necessary for your tactical performance. Guren didn't say anything. He just started taking off her workout clothes. His touch was strong, his loyalty unwavering. She was the rock, the physical anchor that Naruto needed after exhaustion. Naruto's residence in Konoha was bathed in shadows, the moonlight filtering through the curtains like a silent accomplice. The vice coach, still dizzy from the serve shared with Sakura and Ino at the bar, lay sprawled on the sofa. His training jacket half unbuttoned, revealing the outline of his torso worked by years of battles. The guilt and the pressure of his title were fading, but the heat that enveloped him now did not come from the alcohol, but from the two figures watching him from the threshold. Aiki, with his sly gaze and a smile that promised trouble, and Guren, whose solid presence exuded a restrained intensity. Aiki took a step forward, his hips swaying with a deliberate slowness that captured Naruto's attention instantly. Wow, my lord, you look like a ninja who got lost in his own village, his voice said, and a playful purr that vibrated in the air. She leaned over him, her fingers brushing the edge of his t-shirt, pulling it up just barely to expose more skin. Or is it that the serve has made you forget how to handle delicate situations? Naruto, with a mischievous twinkle in his blue eyes, sat up slightly, leaning on his elbows. Delicate, huh? I think I can handle any situation you throw at me, strategist. His tone was defiant, but the blush on his cheeks betrayed the effect Aiki's rubbing had on him. His hands, moved by a bold impulse, found her hips, drawing her in until she was hanging over him. The heat of her body sending a shiver down his spine. Guren, always more action than words, approached with silent steps, kneeling next to the sofa. His hands, strong and confident, began to untie the laces of Naruto's jacket with a precision that left no room for doubt. Too much tension, vice versa. He murmured, his lips brushing the skin of her neck, leaving a trace of heat that made him hold his breath. We're going to get rid of her, our way. Naruto let out a low laugh, choked by the rubbing of Guren's hands. You two aren't wasting your time, are you? His fingers slid down Aiki's hips, slowly climbing up her waist, exploring with a mixture of boldness and reverence. What do they have planned? Why that sparkle in your eyes? Aiki, he says it's not just a strategy talk. Aiki leaned in, her lips a breath away from his, her warm breath mingling with his. Oh my lord, my strategy is simple. Make you burn until you forget even your own name. His hands fiddled with the hem of his t-shirt, lifting her up more to let her fingers dance on his chest, tracing circles that made him gasp. Their hips moved in a slow, deliberate rubbing, each movement a provocation that ignited the air between them. Guren, unwilling to be left behind, slipped her hands down Naruto's sides. Dreams lightly brushing his skin, sending sparks of sensations that made him instinctively arch. "Relax," she whispered, gently nibbling at the sensitive skin under his jaw. "Or not. I prefer it when you struggle a little bit." His tone was a challenge, and his hands ventured further down, exploring with a firmness that left him speechless. "To fight. With you two, I'm at a disadvantage," Naruto growled, but his smile was pure fire. His hands went up Iki's back, drawing her in for a deep kiss, his lips claiming her with an intensity that she responded to with the same fervor. Guren seized the moment, his fingers sliding under the waistband of his trousers, a bold touch that made him break the kiss with a gasp. "Hey, Guren, that's playing dirty." She smiled, a weird but dangerous curve on her lips. "There are no rules tonight, Naruto." Her hands guided him, firm but gentle, while Iki bent down to brush her lips against his ear, whispering, "Let us take control. Just this once." His hips moved again, a sway that made him clench his teeth, his hands clinging to her as if she were his anchor. The air was filled with roguish laughter and provoking whispers. "Do you think you can handle us, Vice President?" Iki challenged, his fingers tangling in her blonde hair as she kissed him again, a slow, burning kiss that left him dizzy. Guren, quieter but no less intense, let her hands do the talking, exploring every contour of his body with a precision that made him shiver. Naruto responded boldly, lifting Iki up with ease to carry her towards the bed, with Guren following them closely, his hands never ceasing to touch him. They fell into a tangle of bodies and laughter, the room charged with a warmth that had nothing to do with the night. "They are a danger," he murmured against Iki's lips, his hands tracing her curves as Guren pressed against her back, his fingers tracing patterns that made him moan. "Danger." Iki laughed, his movements bolder, his hips rippling in a rhythm that drove him crazy. "We are your best adventure, and you know it." Guren, with a hoarse whisper, added, "Let us remind you why you fight, Naruto. For us." His hands became more insistent, his lips finding tender spots that made him arch against her. Every brush was a provocation, every whisper a promise. Their interactions were filled with a dance of desire and trust, their bodies moving in sync, exploring and challenging each other. "How about this, strategist?" Naruto growled, turning to catch Iti under him, his lips claiming hers as Guren laughed softly, his hands never stopping. Hours later, they lay tangled in the sheets, the air heavy with sighs and a shared satisfaction. Iki, with her head resting on his chest, was tracing lazy patterns with her fingers, her smile mischievous but warm. "Don't think that this frees you from my plans, my lord," he murmured, gently nibbling at her skin. Guren, resting against his other side, pressed her hand against his. "Rest up, Naruto. But don't get used to it. Tomorrow, we're still fighting." Her voice was firm, but her eyes sparkled with a tenderness she rarely showed. Naruto, his heart lighter than it had been in months, smiled at the ceiling. "You are my favorite storm," she said, her voice soft but full of affection. He kissed them both, a slow, promising gesture, sealing an unspoken pact in the moonlight. The evening was a passionate and necessary release. Guren provided the physical strength and stability he needed, while Iki took care of the emotional and mental release. Her cunning and affection concentrated on erasing worries. From the Viso cage, the trio found solace and strength in unity. The night cemented Gureniraki's loyalty, reminding Naruto that his true power lay not in a stolen eye, but in the dedication of the women who followed him. Naruto woke up the next morning, completely sober, exactly, but with an iron concentration. The week off was over. The time for the offensive had come. The vice presidential offensive. Starting point for the next adventure. Naruto has mastered the use of the Kuro Rasengan and the prediction of the Sharingan under extreme pressure. Karen and Anko recover, and the intelligence about Kikitsu has been obtained. Upon Kama's return and chat the next morning, Naruto was at peace, but with a renewed seriousness. The first task was to meet with Karen, who was leaving the hospital after 2 weeks of recovery from chakra collapse. The whole harem, Naruto, Aiki, Guren and Tayuya, were waiting at the entrance. When Karen appeared, pale but with her blood-red hair shining, Naruto hugged her with a strength that transcended strategy. "I will never expose you to that risk again." "I swear," Naruto whispered. "My lord, I'm fine. And my chakra is stronger than ever," Karen replied, touched by the sincerity of her Visokage. Then, the group headed to Anko's room. The counterintelligence captain was lying down, her arm immobilized, but her spirit was indomitable. "Brat, you came here to make fun of the injured captain." Anko joked, although there was affection in her voice. "I came to bring you the victory report. We got the intelligence we needed. And you made it possible," Naruto said earnestly. The conversation flowed with the familiarity of a close-knit team. They talked about the Kuro Rasengan and the fear of new people. New Akatsuki. While chatting, Naruto's mind worked tirelessly. An obscure, but practical idea was forming in his head. Naruto's dilemma. Love and loyalty. She no longer saw Guren, Aiki, Tayuya, Karen and Anko as simple tools, but as her companions, her loved ones. And the only family she had left. The threat. The new members of Akatsuki, Kikitsu, Shinkuro, Daisuke, Yor and Kenzi no Oroki, were Kage or Sannin at the power level. They were too strong for a team that, individually, was not at the level of that power. The risk. If he continued to use Swearum in frontal combat as before, it was not a question of whether they would be wounded, but when one of them would die. The verdict against Yurei had been the proof. Naruto knew that, as Konoha's deputy and protector, he had to make a brutal decision about how to employ Swearum. Politics and war had taught him that life is not won only with strength, but with a zero-loss strategy. The zero-loss strategy. Back at the base, Naruto gathered Swearin to plan the next offensive. "We have trained and we have the intelligence. But the last mission taught me that if I keep using you as stormtroopers, one of you will die. I won't allow it." Naruto looked at each of them, his eyes filled with a seriousness that admitted of no debate. "Therefore, my strategy from now on will be the zero-loss strategy. We will not risk any more life in unnecessary combat." The team looked at him curiously. "My decision is as follows. From now on, my harem is my command and support unit. You will not be the spearheads in direct combat against the core members of Akatsuki." Naruto pointed out the new features based on intelligence and recent injuries. Karen will become the life support officer in the rear. His Uzumaki chakra and healing ability are too valuable to be risked on the front line. Your position will be protected by me or Guren at all times. Aiki. She will remain the head of strategy and infiltration. His place is on the council and in the logistics of the mission. Tayuya. Its sonic power will be used for reconnaissance, jamming and crowd control. He will not enter into single combat against the Akatsuki. The head-on struggle and the risk of death falls on a single person. On me. I'm the Hinsuriki, I'm the Vice Ninja, I'm the one with the Kuro Rasengan, Naruto stated. Guren was the only one to protest. "My lord, my crystal is the strongest defense. I can protect you. And you will? But not in direct combat. Your place is zone defense and perimeter containment." Naruto had made a brutal decision. He had to distance them from mortal danger at the cost of carrying all the risk himself. His love for them forced him to become Akatsuki's only target. Naruto has defined a new and risky strategy. He will be the main attacker, and the harem, the support and defense. The objective is clear, a preemptive strike to demonstrate the seriousness of Konoha. The hunt for the Eternal Edge, Kenzi not Oroki, Naruto had made his decision. He would be the main target. The rest of Swearum, the command and support unit, would only intervene to create the opening and ensure survival. The first target under this new zero-loss strategy was Kenzi no Oroki, the ninja of the Eternal Edge, whose movements and weapon attacks were lethally fast. Licky, with her agility and mastery of distraction strategy, was the perfect bait. The plan. Licky, distraction and infiltration. Attacking Kenzi with top speed from multiple angles to force him to focus on evasion, not attack. Tayuya and Guren, zonal support. Create a perimeter of defense against any area of effect attack. Karen, life support. To stay in the rear, with the order to only intervene if Naruto collapsed. Naruto, spearhead. Using the opening created by Aiki, merge the vision of the Sharingan with the speed of the Kibi and finish with the Kuro Rasengan. The team tracked Kenzan to a rocky truck, an ideal location for a quick match. Remember the order: the life of the companion is supreme. If there is a risk of death, withdraw. I'll take care of it, Naruto ordered, adjusting his gloves, with the Sharingan activated. The dance of the Aiki blades was launched. First, moving like lightning. His speed was such that even Kenzie, known for his superhuman reaction time, looked slightly surprised. Aiki did not attack to injure, but to disorientate, throwing cribs and bouncing them off the canyon walls, creating a swarm of metal. Kenzie, dressed in a dark cloak and holding a serpentine-designed sword, simply smiled arrogantly. A fast fly. But flies are easy to cut. Kenzie disembarked. Not only did he use his sword, but he threw a dozen chakra blades around him, an eternal-edged wave and expansive. That was impossible to dodge for the support. Stand down, Naruto shouted. Guren reacted immediately, raising a segmented glass wall in front of Tayuya and Karen. However, the edge wave was so powerful that it fragmented on impact, and the pieces of crystal and chakra passed through the periphery. Tayuya felt the impact on his side and arm, opening superficial cuts that bled immediately. Guren had his face and shoulder cut by the glass shards, painful but superficial. Aiki, despite his speed, could not avoid a guided shuriken. It will tear the skin off his leg. The plan had failed on the part of Zero losses, but they were only slightly injured, which confirmed the need for the new strategy. The fusion of lightning and the eye, Naruto's face hardened at the sight of the blood on his beloved. Guilt turned into concentrated rage. Enough of the games. Naruto roared. He activated the Kibi chakra with surgical precision, enveloping his body in a thin reddish layer. That granted him an explosive acceleration. He combined that speed with his Sharingan to the maximum, which now saw not only Kenzie's movements, but also the future trajectories of the chakra that guided his weapons. Naruto became a blurred line. Kenzie no Oroki felt the change. His opponent was no longer slow. He launched his fastest technique, 100 cradle, and they transformed into chakra threads in the air, guided to catch and dismember. But Naruto's Sharingan, trained for survival, had already seen the pattern. Naruto moved in the dead time between the chakra threads. Each evasion was a millimeter of perfection, his body moving exactly where death was not. The speed of the Kibi allowed him to reach the prediction of the Sharingan. Kenzie, for the first time, felt panic. His technique wasn't working. Naruto closed the distance in an instant, overcoming the guard of the edge ninja. This was his only chance. Dark Rasengan. The black Rasengan, forged with the compressed chakra and the fear of loss, roared in Naruto's palm. It was the technique he had practiced under Guren's pressure, designed to pulverize the chakra defense and the enemy's will. The impact was directly on Kenzie no Oroki's chest. The black sphere did not explode, but imploded, absorbing and nullifying the eternal edge defense chakra. Kenzie was thrown against the canyon wall, not dead, but incapacitated, his chakra source totally exhausted. The price of power and purification of Karen, Naruto remained silent, with his arm outstretched. The adrenaline has dissipated. The cost of the Rasengan cure at full power, in conjunction with the constant acceleration of the Kibi, was catastrophic. His body, now without the chakra layer, trembled. He fell to his knees, and then collapsed completely. His breathing stopped. He had used every last drop of his personal chakra and the kiwi. His nervous system was in total shock. I was about to die from chakra depletion. Naruto? Guren shouted, ignoring his injuries, running towards him. Be still. I'll take care of it. Karen ordered with a steely voice. Karen, although recently discharged and in pain, knew that this was the moment. He knelt down next to Naruto, his life purpose above his pain. She didn't bite him. Instead, he placed his hands on his chest, channeling his Uzumaki chakra. This was not the passive healing of before. It was the purification and supply flow, the improved technique he had been practicing. She poured her high-purity chakra directly into Naruto's system, not only to heal, but to replenish and stabilize its vital source. Naruto's body absorbed the chakra like a dry sponge. The color returned to her lips. After a minute that seemed eternal, Naruto opened his eyes, weak but present, Karen, he whispered. Shut up, my lord, Karen said, tears streaming down her face, but a relieved smile. I saved you? Tayuya and Guren secured the incapacitated Kenzie no Oroki. The victory had been achieved with resounding success, but the price had been almost the life of the vice cage and the injuries of his team. The zero-loss strategy depended entirely on Naruto's sacrifice. The message was clear: Akatsuki was deadly, and only the Kuro Rasengan and Karen's life support would make a difference. The bitter triumph and the first warning of the way back to Konoha was slow. Despite the victory and the capture of Kenzie no Oroki, the team was physically and mentally exhausted. Naruto, pale and trembling from the collapse of chakra, was walking supported by Karen, whose life support function had not ended. Guren, Tayuya and Aiki were carrying minor injuries, cuts and bruises, but the real wear and tear was mental. They had seen their leader die and be reborn in a matter of seconds, and the fear of the Kuro Rasengan was as real as the threat of Akatsuki. We did, my lord, Aiki said, smiling with relief. Ekensi no Oroki. A strategic blow that the ninja world will feel. Yes, but this strategy is too expensive. It can't happen again, Naruto muttered, clinging to Karen's arm. Karen used a constant flow of her chakra to keep Naruto stable, but the effort wore her out quickly. Suddenly, Karen stopped. His Uzumaki eyes widened. Naruto-sama. A great chakra signature, moving at an incredible speed. He's coming after us. It's familiar. Before Naruto could react, a familiar roar cut through the air. A voice full of hatred and resentment shouted across the distance. Katen. Kaki no Jutsu. A gigantic fireball, the size of a house, pounced on them, filling the air with suffocating heat. The betrayal and the forced separation, Naruto recognized that voice and that game. The chakra was cold, full of resentment. There was only one person who had hated his departure from Konoha so much as to give in to that grudge. Sasuke. Naruto shouted. The fireball hit the cannon. Guren reacted immediately, erecting a defensive glass wall to the massif that managed to contain the explosion, but the impact was enough to separate the team. Naruto and Karen were thrown in one direction, while Aiki, Guren and Tayuya were scattered in the other, protected by the crystal. From the smoke and embers, Sasuke Uchiha emerged. He was wearing a minimalist battle suit, and his Sharingan eyes sparkled with pure malice. His aura was one of terrifying speed and concentration. Sasuke wasted no time in sentimentality. He looked directly at Naruto, who was trying to get up, weakened. Naruto? Look at you. Weak. Almost dead. And all because of a bunch of cheap sluts who follow you like dogs. Sasuke, what are you doing? We are brothers. Naruto shouted, feeling a chill run down his back. Sasuke smiled, a sneer full of contempt. Brothers. You changed your friend's revenge. For political power. I left to become strong. You stayed to play zero shit with your Arin. Today, the Avenger will teach you what true loss is. Sasuke focused his Sharingan on the scattered group. He saw the weakness on the face of Aiki, the strategist, the mastermind who had helped Naruto rise to power. Sasuke charged his hand with a concentrated electric chakra, and a screeching scream rang out. Chidori. Reikiri. I'm an Avenger. Sasuke shouted. Lucia's speed was so incredible that, for Tayuya and Guren, it was a blur. But for Naruto, whose Sharingan was active because of the emergency, everything moved in slow motion. Naruto saw the trajectory of the attack, the target. Aiki. He saw the horror on Aiki's face. He saw the blood from his wounds. He tried to move. He wanted to activate the Kuro Rasengan. He wanted to scream. But his body, exhausted by the battle against Kenzie no Oroki, refused to obey. He had no chakra. He was paralyzed. Naruto saw, in freezing weather, how Sasuke Uchiha pierced Aiki's chest with the Reikiri. Aiki, the strategist, the one who never failed, looked at Naruto with an expression of pain and absolute love that transcended death. Ruto, I love you, she whispered. And the sparkle in her eyes went out. His body fell, inert, the blood gushing from the mortal wound. The emotional collapse. The weather returned to normal. Tayuya's scream was heartbreaking. Guren fell to her knees next to her partner's body, her glass face shattered by horror. Naruto stood, motionless, staring at Aiki's body. The strategist, the brilliant mind that had orchestrated her promotion, was dead from a blow from her best friend. Zero losses had failed in the most cruel way. Sasuke withdrew his hand from her, with the unflappable expression of an executioner. That's how it feels, Naruto. This is what it feels like to lose the person you love the most. This is the path of revenge. I lost my clan. Now you're losing your most precious toy. Sasuke turned around, ignoring Tayuya and Guren, and disappeared. He appeared in a space vortex, a newly acquired power, similar to Tobi's, showing an even greater power jump. Naruto, his body still sustained by exhaustion, did not fall physically, but broke emotionally. The shock of watching death in slow motion, helplessly, was torture. Konoha's Vice-Hokage was in shock, kneeling next to his strategist body. Sasuke's revenge had not ended with Aiki's death. It had just started, leaving Naruto shattered. The morning of Konoha and the fallen strategist, the return of the counterintelligence team, was a pure disaster. The vice-captain, Naruto Uzumaki, returned exhausted, with his captains injured, albeit slightly, and, worst of all, with Aiki's lifeless body. The strategist, the woman with the beaming smile and quick wit, the one who had handled the bureaucracy with such grace, was dead. Tsunade, visibly shaken, organized a high-ranking funeral for Aiki, honoring his service as the Vice-Hokage's representative on the council. All Konoha attended. Aiki, unlike the ancient root ninjas, had won the heart of the village with his helpful attitude and his friendliness. She had made sure that the resources reached the families, that the projects moved forward, and that Naruto's new leadership was accepted by everyone. For the villagers, she was the smile of the new era. Naruto stood in front of the crowd, stone-faced, alongside the rest of Swearum, Guren, Taiyu. And there's the convalescent Karen. He had lost his brain, his political conscience, and, most painfully, one of the women he loved the most. Tsunade gave the speech, praising Aiki's dedication. When Naruto had to speak, his voice was a silent thunder. And that taught me that politics is not just about power. It's the art of protecting people who can't protect themselves. She died protecting the future of this village from betrayal. We will never forget her. And I, his deputy, swear that the person who did this will pay with his life. Konoha's mourning turned into a thirst for justice. The political movement of revenge. One day after the funeral, Naruto did not go to training. He went to the Okage Tower and activated his political power. His face was of an absolute coldness that frightened even the elders of the council. Elders of the council, Koru and Omura. Tsunade? I, Naruto Uzumaki, vice president of Konoha, demand an immediate vote. Naruto didn't use the Sharingan. His voice was the cold authority of grief. The assassination of Representative Aiki on an official mission was committed by Sasuke Uchiha. Sasuke is not a simple renegade. He is a terrorist who attacks Konoha to destabilize the new order. Naruto used Aiki's death to force a historic vote. I vote that Sasuke Uchiha be declared the most wanted S-rank criminal in the ninja world. All the resources of the counterintelligence, the Ambu, and the espionage networks should be focused on finding him. Their capture and execution will be the #1 priority of Konoha, above Akatsuki. The village's revenge begins today. The vote was unanimous. The public grief for Aiki was too great for anyone to object. Sasuke Uchiha was officially marked for death. The political movement was a teacher of revenge. Naruto channeled his pain into an official action, using the state apparatus to legitimize his personal vendetta, setting the whole ninja world to search for his enemy. Breaking the oath and isolating death after securing political revenge, Naruto retreated to the training chamber. He didn't eat or sleep. Aiki's face and her final scream kept repeating in her mind. The oath to use the Rasengan cure only once, and only as a last resort, was shattered. I was weak. My chakra wasn't enough. If I had been stronger, she would still be alive. Naruto roared, hitting the ground. Guren, Tayuya and Karen tried to intervene, but Naruto pushed them away with a torrent of Kibi chakra, not to hurt them, but to force them back. Go away. If I fail again, more of you will die. I don't want to see them. She screamed, her pain turning to isolation. Naruto locked himself in, obsessed with an idea. Master the Kuro Rasengan for multiple use without dying in the attempt. Absolutely. Aiki's death should be a public event that affects the entire village, cementing his legacy and Naruto's grief. Then we will execute the political revenge and the desperation of training. Chapter 11, Brothers' Revenge and the Blood Oath, Part 65. The morning of Konoha and the fallen strategist. The return of the counterintelligence team was a public disaster. The Vice Hokage, Naruto Uzumaki, returned exhausted. With their captains injured, albeit slightly, and, worst of all, with Aiki's lifeless body. The strategist, the woman with the beaming smile and quick wit, the one who had handled the bureaucracy with such grace, was dead. Tsunade, visibly shaken, arranged a high-ranking funeral for Aiki, honoring his service as the vice location's representative on the council. All Konoha attended. Aiki, unlike the ancient root ninjas, had won the heart of the village with his helpful attitude and his friendliness. She had made sure that the resources reached the families, that the projects moved forward, and that Naruto's new leadership was accepted by everyone. For the villagers, she was the smile of the new era. Naruto stood in front of the crowd, stone-faced, alongside the rest of Swearum, Gyurin, Teiuya, and the convalescing Karen. He had lost his brain, his consciousness, politics, and, most painfully, one of the women he loved the most. Tsunade gave the speech, praising Aiki's dedication. When Naruto had to speak, his voice was a silent thunder. Aiki taught me that politics is not just about power. It's the art of protecting people who can't protect themselves. She died protecting the future of this village from betrayal. We will never forget her. And I, his deputy, swear that the person who did this will pay with his life. Konoha's mourning turned into a thirst for justice. Part 66. The political movement of revenge. One day after the funeral, Naruto didn't go to training. He went to the Okage Tower and activated his political power. His face was of an absolute coldness that frightened even the elders of the council. Elders of the council, Koru and Omura. Tsunade. I, Naruto Uzumaki, vice president of Konoha, demand an immediate vote. Naruto didn't use the Sharingan. His voice was the cold authority of grief. The assassination of Representative Aiki on an official mission was committed by Sasuke Uchiha. Sasuke is not a simple renegade. He is a terrorist who attacks Konoha to destabilize the new order. Naruto used Aiki's death to force a historic vote. I vote that Sasuke Uchiha be declared the most wanted S-rank criminal in the ninja world. All the resources of the counterintelligence, the AMBU, and the espionage networks should be focused on finding him. His capture and execution will be Konoha's #1 priority, above Fumakatsuki. The village's revenge begins today. The vote was unanimous. The public grief for Aiki was too great for anyone to object. Sasuke Uchiha was officially marked for death. The political movement was a mastery of revenge. Naruto channeled his pain into an official action, using the state apparatus to legitimize his personal vendetta, setting the whole ninja world to search for his enemy. Part 67. Breaking the oath and isolating death after securing political revenge, Naruto retreated to the sealed training chamber. He didn't eat or sleep. Aiki's face and her final scream kept repeating in her mind. The oath to use the Rasengan cure only once, and only as a last resort, was shattered. I was weak. My chakra wasn't enough. If I had been stronger, she would still be alive. Naruto roared, hitting the ground. Gyurin, Teiuya and Karen tried to intervene, but Naruto pushed them away with a torrent of Kibi chakra, not to hurt them, but to force them back. Go away. If I fail again, more of you will die. I don't want to see them. She screamed, her pain turning to isolation. Naruto locked himself away, obsessed with one idea: to master the Kuro Rasengan for multiple use, without dying in the attempt. If the Kuro Rasengan kills me with one use, I'll do it 3 times. If he comes back, I will destroy him. Naruto activated his Sharingan. Training has become a way. Masochistic pursuit of perfection. Usno. 1. Naruto summoned the Kuro Rasengan. The pain was unbearable, the body went into shock. Then he stopped, using the last millisecond of will to seal the technique instead of letting it dissipate, forcing the chakra to remain in its situation. System. Usno. 2. Naruto's chakra system was revealed. The veins in his arm swelled up. He channeled the rage over Aiki's death to force the technique a second time. The chakra collapse felt like his soul was being ripped out. He fell, vomiting blood, on the verge of death. Usno. 3. The Blood Oath. Naruto used the pain of failure and revenge. The Sharingan allowed him to see the exact spot where his heart was about to fail. He forced the technique for the 3rd time. The black Rasengan he created was unstable, surrounds. Of red sparks formed the Kibi chakra and a black aura. Upon achieving this, Naruto collapsed in a pool of sweat and blood, completely exhausted. He had not died, but he was closer to death than in any battle. His body had exceeded the limit. Naruto had broken his oath and had learned to use the Kuro Rasengan multiple times, at the cost of a deadly risk. His revenge was now a blood oath. The return of the dagger and the promise of life. The return home and the broken calm. Naruto had spent days on the verge of death, training the Kuro Rasengan to master it for multiple use. His body was on edge, but his mind, driven by revenge for Aiki, was focused. When he finally emerged from the chamber, pale and exhausted, his aura was that of a demon-possessed warrior, ready for war. The vice stop was greeted by excellent news. Anko Mitarasi had been discharged from hospital. The counterintelligence captain returned to the base. Although he still had his arm immobilized and could not fight, his presence was an anchor for the team. Seeing Anko, the woman of steel, healthy and back, made Naruto's tension decrease slightly. Brat. Enough of the melodrama. Aiki wouldn't want you to die from exhaustion. She would want you to kill that Uchiha. So rest and focus, Anko ordered, his voice rough but comforting. Naruto felt the fog of rage lift a little. He had achieved the mastery of jutsu, and now his partner was back. He allowed himself to rest in the living room, for the first time in days, surrounded by Anko, Karen, already almost completely recovered, and Teyuya. The Uzumaki lineage and the Crystal of Hope Guren entered the hall, with an unusually serious face. He had been away, making a medical visit for reasons he had kept secret. She stood in front of Naruto, who was still recovering from chakra collapse, and the rest of the REM. Naruto-sama, the team. I have two important pieces of news to give you. Two pieces of news that change the whole future for us, as Guren began, his voice was grave. She took a breath, starting with the worst one. The bad news, and I apologize for my tact, is about Aiki. After his death, an internal autopsy was performed to understand his chakra and the impact of Reikiri. The reports suggest something that is almost certain. Aiki was pregnant. The silence in the room was absolute, only broken by Karen's soft, heartbreaking sigh. Naruto felt his blood boil, and the pain tripled. Aiki had not only died, but she had died with her son. The hatred towards Sasuke became a palpable substance. Guren continued, his face filled with a pent-up emotion. The good news is that fate, or fortune, has given us another chance. I'm pregnant too. The impact was physical. Naruto staggered, while Anko and Teyuya stood with their mouths open. Guren approached Naruto, his mother, on her flat stomach. It will be a boy. The doctor confirms that she will give birth in 7 months. And the child will carry the Uzumaki lineage, the life force and the chakra, along with my Kik and Genka and the crystal element. Naruto's heart was torn between the hatred he felt for the lost life and the immense love that I felt for the newly created life. The news was an emotional tsunami. Her eyes, which minutes before had been filled with the madness of the Sharingan and revenge, were filled with tears that she had not allowed since Aiki's death. It is the perfect time for the awakening of such an extreme power. Joy for life and hatred for loss will lead Naruto to the evolutionary peak of the Sharingan. Guren stood in front of Naruto and the rest of the harem. The room was quiet. Naruto closed his eye, tightening the bandage, and let out a silent roar. The impact was an emotional earthquake. The despair over the death of Aiki's son crashed into the ecstasy of Guren's son. Hatred met with pure love. Naruto opened his only eye, Danza's implanted Sharingan. At that moment, the combined emotional pressure of irremediable loss and the promise of a new life was the catalyst her body made. His chakra needed. The Kunoichi gasped. Naruto's eye had not only activated the Mayeki Sharingan pattern, but had somehow transformed directly into the eternal Mayeki Sharingan Ms. The pattern turned and merged into a perfectly stable and complex shape. A deeper, more sinister red, with no signs of exhaustion or bleeding. Teyuya felt the change in the chakra signature. Karen felt that Naruto's eye energy had gone from dangerous to infinitely stable and colossal. "My lord! Your eye!" Guren shouted, recoiling slightly from the intensity. Naruto felt no pain, but an icy clarity and immense power. The Sharingan had transcended his limitation. It would no longer degrade. His vengeance and his duty of protection were now eternal. Guren, Naruto's voice was a broken whisper. The father's oath. Naruto hugged Guren with a delicacy and an emotion that he had never shown to anyone. The pain for Aiki was mixed with the silent oath to protect this new life. "I'm going to be a dad," Naruto shouted, laughing and crying at the same time, releasing all the accumulated stress of the last few weeks. The Kunoichi joined in a collective hug. The loss of Aiki had been a blow, but the promise of an heir, a child with the Uzumaki life force, and the impregnable defense of the crystal was the hope Konoha and Swearum needed. "There will be no planning today, there will be no training," Naruto declared, his voice still wet from tears, but with a new authority. "Today, we celebrate. We celebrate the life of Aiki, and we celebrate the life of our future son." That night, the harem celebrated at the base. The serve flowed, for everyone but Guren and Karen. Laughter replaced mourning, and Naruto's fury was channeled into a calm determination. The celebration of life and the seal of the harem, the night fell on Naruto's secret base. But the darkness was chased away by a rare and necessary celebration. The sadness for Aiki was still palpable, but the news of Guren's baby had injected a furious hope into the team. Karen lit some candles, Tayuya put on lively music, and Anko, with his arm immobilized, prepared the best serve they had. Opening the emergency reserves. "Tonight we're not thinking about Sasuke, or Akatsuki, or the Kuro Rasengan," Naruto declared, raising his glass. His face, though serious, shining with a new peace. "Here's to Aki, whose life and love made us better leaders. And here's to our future. By the heir Uzumaki crystal." The toast was sincere. Guren barely tasted a serving glass, staying sober and vigilant, but smiling with a serenity never seen before. Karen, Tayuya, and Anko were not so restrained. The stress of the last few weeks, the loss and the euphoria of pregnancy, were channeled into alcohol. Laughter echoed around the base. Tayuya and Anko made fun of the council elders, while Karen talked about her new healing ability, exaggerating her powers with alcohol. Naruto let himself be carried away by the collective joy, drinking at an alarming rate. The Vizokage desperately needed to forget the sight of Itachi falling. Soon, the trio, Naruto, Tayuya, and Karen, were drunk, laughing loudly and stumbling. "I'm the best in the world. Take it easy," Naruto shouted. "And I'm the one with the best hearing. And you're the loudest, you idiot," Tayuya replied, hugging him. "And I'm the one who saves your ass. Without me, you'd be a dehydrated corpse," Karen joked. The celebration reached its peak. The four Kunoichi looked at each other, and a silent understanding passed between them. The best way to honor Aiki and ensure Naruto's stability was to remind him of the unbreakable bond of his harem. Anko, despite his broken arm, took command with a mischievous smile. "Enough drinking, you brats. There's a better way to celebrate life and remind this idiot why he shouldn't die. Guren, you are the future. We are his present." Guren, with the calm of a mother, nodded. "Go ahead." The four of them, Naruto, Guren, Tayuya, and Karen, headed to the master bedroom. The night became a seal of unity and hope. Karen used her chakra, not to heal, but to infuse pleasure. Tayuya used his touch and his raw intensity. Guren, the pregnant one, was the center of everything, a reminder. Physics of the future. The five of them entered the master bedroom, as Anko, with his arm immobilized, but a malicious smile curving his lips, couldn't resist joining in the fun, despite his injury. The air was thick with the heat of the serve and the racing pulse of anticipation. The candles flickering as silent witnesses of the union that was forged. The alcohol had broken down the last barriers, turning the night into a whirlwind of roguish touches and shared laughs, where every glance promised mischief and every brush stoked the fire. Guren, serene and radiant with her slightly swollen belly, settled in the center of the bed like the undisputed queen, attracting Naruto with a gentle gesture. "Come here, my leader," she whispered, guiding her hands over his warm skin, reminding him with every caress of the miracle growing inside. Naruto, intoxicated and anxious, responded with reverent kisses, but soon Tayuya got in the way with his wild energy, pressing his body against Guren's in a playful embrace. "Don't hoard it just for yourself, you idiot," Tayuya teased, nibbling at Naruto's earlobe, as his fingers traced bold patterns over Guren's curve, making Guren gasp with a mixture of surprise and delight. Karen, her eyes sparkling with mischief under the influence of alcohol, was not far behind. He approached Tayuya from behind, wrapping her in a possessive hug, his lips brushing her neck, while his hands explored with a drunken curiosity. "Let me show you how it's really done," Karen murmured, and the two of them melted into a fiery kiss, their forms intertwining in a fluid dance that made their breaths synchronize. Anko, watching from the edge of the bed with a crooked smile, felt the familiar tingle of his masochistic side waking up. "Don't leave me out, you brats. With this broken arm, I need to be controlled a little more," he said in a hoarse voice, extending his good arm in a clear invitation. "Mind me, make me feel the bite of the strings. That will put me in my place." Naruto, with a low, mischievous laugh, agreed immediately, using strips of soft fabric from the sheets to gently tie Anko's wrists to the head of the bed, making sure his injured arm was protected, but the rest of his body exposed to the attentions of the group. "As orders, Anko-sensei," he joked, leaning down to brush his lips against hers in a dominant kiss that made her arch with a moan of pleasure mixed with that sweet pain she longed for so much. Tayuya, always the boldest, joined the game, climbing over Anko to draw lines of fire, with his fingernails along her skin, whispering provocations in the ear of the bound Kunoichi. "Look how vulnerable you are now, do you like that?" Tayuya asked, and Anko replied with an anxious nod, her eyes pleading for more. The interaction became a whirlwind of connections. Karen slipped between Guren and Naruto, infusing her chakra in touches that amplified every sensation, causing Naruto to growl with delight as her hands reached out to include Anko, slightly pulling on the bonds too, to intensify his masochistic arousal. "Feel this, Anko, it's for all of us," she said. Karen said, and soon she was leaning in to kiss Tayuya again, their bodies pressed together in a tangle that invited Guren to join in, her fingers intertwining with Karen's in a shared caress on Tayuya's skin. Guren, firm his central position, guided with soft but firm words, attracting Anko with a glance. "Complicit look. Even tied up, you're part of this. Let yourself go," he murmured, and reached out a hand to caress Anko's face, while Naruto moved between them, his touches alternating between tenderness and mischief. Alcohol made everything flow with an uninhibited boldness. Tayuya and Karen took turns to pamper Anko, their kisses and rubbing on her restrained form elicit ecstatic sighs, while Naruto and Guren watched and participated, creating chains of pleasure where a kiss from Naruto to Guren was. He would extend Tayuya, and firm there to Karen, who would return him to Anko with a playful tug of the strings. "Harder, I don't break so easy," Anko panted, his masochism fanned by every restriction, every rubbing that bordered on the limit of pleasurable pain. The laughs were mixed with groans, the verbal provocations flying like, "You're a bound imp, Anko," from Tayuya. Or "Show us how much you enjoy it," from Karen, while Guren calmed down with her maternal presence, ensuring that the balance is maintained. As the night deepened, the rhythm accelerated in a crescendo of intertwined energies, Karen's chakra elevating everything to an almost supernatural plane, where the bodies merged into a symphony. It was about unity. Finally, exhausted but strengthened, they collapsed into a heap of interlocking limbs and gasping breaths, Anko's bonds carefully loosened by Naruto. The seal of the REM had been strengthened with mischievousness and passion, honoring the past and embracing the future under the veil of night. Passion was a powerful emotional purge for Naruto. The desperation for Aiki was replaced by the sacred obligation to protect the ones he had left and the child who was on his way. The celebration was the end point of his mourning and the beginning of his new era as a protector. The search and the strength. Starting point for the next adventure. Naruto is refreshed, motivated, and has mastered the eternal Maeki Sharingan. The hunt for Sasuke has been declared. Akatsuki is still a threat. He is now the absolute guardian. The hatred for Sasuke had not diminished, but had become a sacred purpose. Sasuke was not only a terrorist, but the murderer of his beloved and his unborn child. Now, Naruto had a son to live for and a killer to hunt. The Keeper's offense. Naruto is emotionally transformed. The pain for Aiki has been channeled into protecting Guren and the baby. The training of the Kuro Rasengan is mastered. The hunt for Sasuke has been declared. Akatsuki is still a threat. The morning meeting and the family oath the morning after the celebration was solemn. The atmosphere was not one of hangover, but of absolute seriousness. Naruto was standing in the meeting room, fully clothed, and with his eternal Sharingan Mayeki resting under his eyelid, ready to activate. He gathered the 4 women, Karen, his life support, Guren, the mother of his future child, Anko, his head of intelligence, just discharged, and Tayuya, his loyal warrior. Naruto did not use detours. His voice was calm, but cutting. Listen to me well. The night of celebration is over. Sasuke's betrayal and Aiki's murder have changed all the rules. I made an unforgivable mistake. I exposed them to mortal danger. Never again. The heart of the meeting was his next statement, addressed to all of them, but especially to the 3 Kunoichi that he had seen for a while. As tools of war, I want you to understand something, once and for all. You are no longer my tools of war. They are no longer my passion partners. You are my family, my home, and my duty as a man, as a leader, and as the one who carries this power, is to create a sanctuary for my family. The statement struck a blow to the Kunoichi, who had always fought for their worth. The new rearguard strategy. Naruto began assigning the new guidelines, which were, in essence, a temporary demotion from his combat roles to protection roles. Guren, you are the supreme priority. You're carrying our son. Your life, and the life of baby Uzumaki Crystal, is the future I'm risking. Everything to protect. Therefore, your duty is absolute. You will stay in Konoha. Your mission is to create our home, and you will not go on any mission that involves combat risk. Guren tried to protest, remembering her duty of defense, but Naruto stopped her with a glance. Your crystal power must be used to ensure the peace of our future child. Your duty is here, Guren. Then, Naruto turned to Anko. Anko, you're the sharpest mind I have, and the captain of counterintelligence. You stay in Konoha in charge of your administrative tasks. Your arm is not ready yet. But more importantly, I need your strategic mind here to direct Sasuke's hunt and coordinate Akatsuki's information. You won't take any chances on the field. Anko, although frustrated by her inactivity, understood the brutal logic. It was his strategy. Finally, he turned to Tayuya. Tayuya, I know that confrontation is what you like the most, but I can't risk your life in an East-rank fight where you can't use your genjutsu against Akatsuki's speed. Your strength is too valuable to be sacrificed. Your mission will be village guard and perimeter defense. If an enemy comes to Konoha, you will be the first to confront him. But you won't come with me. Tayuya, the most impulsive, clenched her fists. Naruto, I'm strong. I can get even with Sasuke. And you will. But with me in front, not next to me. The only exception. Naruto turned to Karen, making the only exception to the rule. Karen, you are my only exception. You're going with me? The others gasped. It's not for pleasure, nor for taste, Naruto clarified, his face hardening. It is an absolute necessity for my survival. I'll go to the front with the Kuro Rasengan and the M's. Both will bring me to the brink of death from chakra depletion. You are my life insurance. You're the only one who can bring me back to life after an attack by the Kuro Rasengan. Naruto looked at his family, his final oath echoing in the room. I will never lose a loved one again. I won't lose my family. I'll be the only one who takes the risk. My duty now is to create the peace that you deserve. The Guardian gets going. With that order, the new order was established. The vice coach was preparing for his solo offensive, with Karen as his only connection to life. Life. The demand to the underworld, the root. The day after setting up his new future guard strategy, Naruto's first action was to go to the Okage Tower and demand a meeting with the remnants of the root, Rod. Dan Shimura no longer existed, but the secret Anbu organization that operated in the shadows. Known for its inhuman loyalty and dark methods, it was still led by a handful of lieutenants loyal to Dan's vision. But now under the nominal supervision of Tsunade. Naruto, with his eternal Mayeki Sharingan resting under his eyelid, showed up at the Root's underground meeting room, taking only Karen by his side. The interim leader, a cold and emotionless ninja known as Shin, squared up, but with barely disguised arrogance. Vice luggage. How can we be of service to you? Naruto's voice was a whip. You guys served Dan's. They're good for me now. Her former teacher, Anko Mitarashi, is my head of intelligence. And the criminal who murdered my manager was Sasuke Uchiha. Naruto hit the table with his fist, and the stone table shook. The hunting of Sasuke Uchiha is the priority East rank of Konoha. I don't want the Zanbu loyal to the Hokage for that. I want your darkest dogs. I want the root. Shin tried to object, mentioning the Hokage regulations, but Naruto cut him off with an intense glare, briefly activating the Lem's pattern in a crimson flash. I don't ask, I order. I need 6 of your best ambos. The ones with no name, the ones with the best tracking tags, the ones who can operate without emotions. They will be the eyes and the decoys in my quest for revenge. You will prepare them and place them under my direct command. Understood. Shin, feeling the palpable power and the absolute grudge he earned me from the vice messenger, bowed down. Roger that, vice courier. 6 agents will be prepared by dawn tomorrow. The planning and the tracking trident, Naruto and Karen returned to the base where Anko, despite her immobilized arm, was ready for the planning. Using to the root is smart, Brad. They are dirty, they are effective, and if they die, no one will care. But you have to be careful. Their loyalty is a double-edged sword, Anko warned. I just need your tracking knowledge, Naruto replied. Karen, you will be my connection with them. If something goes wrong, you disconnect them. Anko, I need you to tell me the best way for 6 Andu to track down an Uchiha that uses spatial dimensions. Anko, using his knowledge of Danze's methods, explained the strategy. Sasuke uses the Sharingan, and now spacetime, thanks to everything. Traditional chakra tracing is useless. The root has a specialized tracking trident. Biological monitoring. Ambu with seals to track the genetic chakra signatures, that is, the Uchiha blood. Seal tracking. Ambu trained to detect the dimensional rupture of spacetime as it leaves a small trace of chakra. Emotional follow-up. The use of subtle genjutsu to manipulate civilians in search of information. The decision of the target. Sasuke is our priority. He killed Aiki and endangered Guren and our son, Naruto stated. But Sasuke is a ghost. Akatsuki is the organization that protects him and the one that threatens Konoha. Karen intervened, her Uzumaki chakra giving her a brutal clarity. My lord, if we hunt down Sasuke, Tobi might intervene again. That's a risk we can't take with your chakra depletion. Akatsuki is an easier threat to predict. Naruto nodded, looking at the map. Aiki's logic still dictated his movements. The goal is simple, to weaken Akatsuki so that they cannot protect Sasuke. We're going to do a quick, one-man punch, and then we'll focus on the house. Lucia hunting. The mission. Gravity ambush, Shinkuro, based on the training with Guren, Naruto chose the most logical and best countered target. Shinkuro, the master of gravity. The composition of the team, 8 people. Spearhead. Naruto Uzumaki, Ems, Kuro Rasengan. Life support. Karin Uzumaki, healing and purification. Tracking trident. 6 Ambu of the root, biological tracking, Dicellos and emotional. The tactical plan. The 6 Ambu of the root will track and corner Shinkuro in an open canyon, similar to the original plan. Once cornered, the Zanbu will disperse and act as expendable decoys, forcing Shinkuro to use his gravity jutsu. Karen will stay in extreme rear guard. Naruto will use his eternal Maeki Sharingan to predict Shinkuro's gravitational force fields. The Kuro Rasengan will be used to neutralize his gravity jutsu, delivering a quick one-man punch. This is Operation Guardian. The mission is to capture or eliminate Shinkuro and then return. If any of the root Zanbu attempt a betrayal, Karen, you have permission to use your chakra to eliminate them, Naruto ordered. Naruto, looking at Karen. Understood, my lord, Karen replied, ready for her role as her family's sole shield. At dawn, Naruto and Karen left Konoha with 6 silent shadows of the root following closely behind. The hunt had begun. The shadow of the root and the silent oath at dawn, Naruto and Karen departed. The Vice Knight wore his battle attire and an aura of icy intensity. Karen, her medical vest, and the backpack full of chakra supplies, ready for emergency healing. Behind them, 6 shadowy, silent figures were moving. The Zanbu of the root. Their faces, hidden by anonymous animal masks, did not reveal any emotion. They were the embodiment of the perfect tool that Naruto had rejected for his own family, but now used without remorse. Naruto maintained an emotional distance from the Zanbu. He only communicated through concise orders. Karen, stay 2 kilometers away from the combat zone. Use your detection to keep an eye on the root Zanbu. If they try anything, any deviation from the order, Naruto's voice was gravelly, you tell me immediately. Your mission is my survival, not theirs. Understood, my lord, Karen replied, feeling the heavy burden of being Naruto's only umbilical cord to life. The hunt began. The root Zanbu scattered in tracking formations of tracking trident. They used methods that Konoha rarely used, seals that detected the dimensional microfluctuations left by an S-class ninja when moving, and a biological tracking focused on detecting chakra signatures that sought extreme loneliness, a known habit of Shinkuro to avoid civilian casualties with his devastating jutsu. The circle is closing. The efficiency of the route was brutal. In less than 6 hours, one of the biological trackers identified an unusual concentration of pressure in an isolated area. A rocky canyon with geological structures perfect to withstand and channel the gravitational force. The identified target. Border region of the country of hot springs. Presence of anomalous elemental chakra. Constant pressure. It must be Shinkuro, master of gravity, one of the Zanbu reported in a robotic voice. Naruto met up with the team at the perimeter of the canyon. He activated his eternal Maeki Sharingan, EMS. Naruto's vision was amazing. Not only did he see the rocks and the trees, but he saw the flow of Shinkuro's gravity chakra. An invisible, yet palpable force field, bending the light and air around him. Shinkuro was in the center, sitting, not knowing that his presence had been detected so accurately. Here. This is where Guren and I trained for this, Naruto muttered, remembering the painful sessions under the glass. Naruto gave the final order to the root Zanbu. You will enter in pairs. Their mission is not to fight. It is to get his attention and force him to activate his gravity jutsu to the maximum. After that, they are expendable. If you see Shinkuro attacking, run away. If they are captured, their self-destruct seal is their duty. Understood? The 6 root Zanbu nodded in unison, without a hint of fear or hesitation. They were perfect in duels. The start of the battle and the impending pressure, the first to ambush moved. Shinkuro, a man of medium build with an Akatsuki cape, opened his eyes, irritated by the interruption of his meditation. Wow! The leaf. What are they? Flies looking to be swatted. Shinkuro raised a hand, and the ground under the 2 ambushes instantly sank, creating a gravity force thousands of times higher than normal. The bodies of the 2 ninjas flattened against the rock, lifeless. Shinkuro's gravity was an invisible and omnipresent force. Naruto felt no pity for the Zanbu. They had fulfilled their function. The vice-captain launched himself into the canyon. Karen, 2 kilometers away, prepared her cumulative seals, her heart beating with terror for Naruto's life. But ready for the emergency. Naruto activated the eternal Maeki Sharingan completely. The skipper turned. The EMS allowed him to see Shinkuro's lines of gravitational force. How the pressure moved, how it was channeled, and where were the blind spots where the force of gravity was 0. Naruto activated the Kibi's chakra layer, seeking explosive speed. Shinkuro. I'm Naruto Uzumaki. Your gravity game ends today. The battle for the survival of the shinobi world against the terror of gravity had just begun. Naruto was alone, with his only lifeline waiting far away. The force field and the eternal vision. Shinkuro, irritated by Naruto's audacity and the intruders of the route he had crushed. Worn out, he raised his hand. The whole canyon shook. A Jinzuriki is too big a weight to carry. Tsuchi Bunch. Juyoku Kai, gravity release. Terrestrial augmentation, Shinkuro muttered. The air became dense. Naruto felt that an invisible force of millions of tons. I was trying to press him to the ground. It was the same crushing pressure that he had practiced with Guren, but amplified and real. But Naruto was ready. He activated the eternal Maeki Sharingan, EMS. Under the infinite vision, Shinkuro's force field was not invisible. It was a complex network of chakra lines that converged on the body of the gravity master. Naruto saw the blind spots in the gravitational net, the places where the force was momentarily 0. Naruto activated his Kibi-powered speed and moved. He was not dodging the attack, but dodging gravity itself by moving between the nodes of the force. It was a dance of millimeters, where a single misstep would result in being crushed. It's impossible. No one can evade my gravitational domain. Shinkuro shouted, feeling that his chakra could not hold Naruto. I learned it from an expert, and it cost me a lot. Naruto replied, using pressure to force himself to accelerate, using gravity against him. Naruto used the speed of the Kibi to close the distance in an instant. The M's allowed him to predict the exact moment when Shinkuro would try to increase the pressure at his current position. Just as Shinkuro aimed his hand to crush Naruto's position, the Vice Knight moved to the gravity standstill and loaded the only weapon that could break the gravity defense. The Kuro Rasengan. This is the jutsu we created, and it is the only answer for your power. Naruto channeled the Myaki's power to stabilize the form, the Kibi to give it the fuel of absolute destruction, and his own will to handle the deadly risk. The Black Rasengan spun, surrounded by an aura of black flames that emitted no light, only a profound nullification. The blow was devastating. The Kuro Rasengan directly hit the energy center of Shinkuro. The technique, designed to override the chakra defenses and the elemental form, not only broke the master's gravitational force field, but pulverized the chakra that was holding it. Shinkuro let out a scream of agony before collapsing, his body intact, but his chakra system completely nullified and inert. The collapse and the lifeline, the victory was instant, total and brutal. Shinkuro was defeated, but the cost to Naruto was immediate. The Kuro Rasengan at full power, even with the M's, drained Naruto to the core. Lum's pattern faded, and the pain of exhaustion hit him like a shock wave. He fell, this time without being surprised. His consciousness vanished. 2 kilometers away, Karen felt the abrupt drop of Naruto's chakra signature. The lifeline had been cut off. Now, Karen shouted, activating her maximum speed. Karen ran towards the canyon, using her Uzumaki detection to navigate in a straight line through the terrain. He arrived at the canyon and saw Naruto collapsed, pale as a ghost, and the inert Shinkuro. Karen did not hesitate. He knelt down next to Naruto and immediately began the flow of purification and supply, forcing his purified Uzumaki chakra into Naruto's body. The process was longer and more exhausting than the last time, but it was the only way. Life flowed from Karen to Naruto. After a few agonizing minutes, Naruto opened his eyes, weak but alive. "Karen, we did it," he whispered. "You did, my love," she replied, exhausted but victorious. "And I've brought you back home to your family." With Shinkuro neutralized, the threat of gravity had been eliminated, and Operation Guardian had been a resounding success. Naruto, however, was on edge, and the M's had taken a toll. The return of death and endless fatigue, Naruto and Karen returned to the secret base under a cloak of night. The victory over Shinkuro, the master of gravity, had been total, but the physical toll had been terrifying. The 6 root Zanbu had returned, and those had only served as tracking decoys, fleeing in time. But Naruto was on the verge of physical collapse, his body trembling from the effort. Karen was exhausted from the chakra transfusion. His purification and supply flow had saved Naruto, but he couldn't avoid the cost of the new technique. "It's not just the chakra, my lord," Karen explained, as Guren and Teiuya helped carry Naruto to bed. "The Kuro Rasengan at full power drains your life force until the organs collapse. And the eternal Miyaki Sharingan, M's, although it gives you vision without blindness, consumes energy at an unsustainable rate when you use it to predict movements of that magnitude." Guren, with his crystal calm, put a hand on Naruto's chest, feeling the tension in his muscles. "Your body is stronger than an average Hinzriki, but it is not indestructible." The M gave himself the victory, but if you try to use the Kuro Rasengan again in this state, my lord, you will die. No matter how much chakra Karen gives you, the organic shock will be fatal. The lesson was clear. The Kuro Rasengan was his one-use trump card, and he couldn't afford to waste it or use it half-heartedly. His life depended on patience. The Avengers' chance, Anko's report, while Naruto was recovering, Anko, from the counterintelligence headquarters, barged in with a data tablet. Although physically injured, her mind was as sharp as ever. "Naruto, time is running out. The Sasuke hunt you started is bearing fruit." Anko showed a holographic map. The root Zanbu who were left tracking Sasuke had found something crucial. The dimensional rupture trackers of the root have found a strong trace. Sasuke was recently in an old Akatsuki hideout near the borders of Rain. Not only that, but there has been a strong chakra spike in the area. Anko looked at Naruto with a brutal seriousness. My analysis is that Sasuke is consolidating, possibly absorbing power, or reuniting with Tobi, or another high-ranking enemy. We could corner him. But the risk is extreme. Only you, with the M's and the Kuro Rasengan, can face it. And you're out of action for at least 3 days. Naruto's internal conflict was heartbreaking. Revenge for Aiki and her lost son was within her grasp, but the life of Guren and her